All right, welcome to the wrap up. So I guess I'm starting to lose track here, but 3-2 I guess is what you saw today. Like I said, the original league finished 4-1, but we lost those rounds due to many moto crashes and OBS issues. I don't know what was going on during those recordings, but man, I think I had moto crash somewhere around 8 or 9 times. I reinstalled it recently, and thus far we've been okay. Hopefully no more issues in the future, but it is Magic Online, so no promises. As far as the list is concerned, I really didn't get to test out a lot of the stuff in the sideboard that I'm still interested in testing. But mostly I want to talk about some possibilities for this deck moving forward. And I think there are a variety of ways to approach that. If I was to continue testing this deck, I think I would go back to the original list and then build out from there again to try and reset some of the biases I have, maybe about Chalice or explosives or the black sources or whatever. So I think the first approach would be to just stick with the mono blue, heavier on counter magic, no black sources list and see if that ups some consistency. So you would have no chalices in that list. And that gives you a little bit of wiggle room for sideboard options too, if you're able to play 1-drops. Maybe you want to get cute with Quicken here or there. Maybe you want to jam some Dispels, stuff like that. As far as other routes, you could go a little deeper into black. Maybe play some more black sideboard cards if you were really interested, like Brutalities or whatever else, really. You know, discard Thoughtseize. Maybe don't play Chalices. Maybe play Thoughtseizes or something instead of, say, Remands. Now, I'm not sure I really want to go down that road, but sort of that's a different way of leveraging the fact that you are using As Foretold to cast Living End, right? The traditional Living End deck's biggest problem is that you can't play things that you can cascade into, right? And we get to play all kinds of stuff that we would cascade into otherwise, which is nice. So it puts us in the spot where maybe we want to pursue something like that, maybe a little more, you know, a little heavier on the mana base and a little better on our spells too. Maybe we get to play Thoughtseize or Inquisition or Brutalities or whatever. The point being, we could get heavier into black, maybe even white, something like that. And I think the one other really particularly interesting option is go heavier into prison elements. Now, Blood Moon is looking particularly good in the meta right now, if it's going to be a lot of Scapeshift and Tron. So Blood Moon and Chalice and Simian Spirit Guide are certainly ways you could approach this deck, right? The problem with that overall is mostly with your cryptic commands. You would end up having to shave, if not cut entirely, your cryptic commands. And I think those are a really big part of this deck, honestly, the way it's currently constructed. So you'd really be looking to cheese people out a lot more. The advantage of that, however, is that you'd have Simian Spirit Guides to accelerate Chalice, to accelerate Blood Moon, and to accelerate As Foretold. Now, you might be thinking, do I really want to accelerate As Foretold? You know, think back to something like Living End. When you accelerate Living End, they're often going to be particularly small Living Ends because you haven't had time to cycle anything. You know, is that really something we want to do? Well, with As Foretold, we're also casting Ancestral Vision. We're also ticking up counters to cast more things later. There is some incentive to doing this. You know, the difference between like casting an Ancestral off of As Foretold against Burn on turn 3 or 4 versus turn 2 is pretty big, right? You can actually still draw 3 on turn 2 with your As Foretold and be in a pretty reasonable position against a more aggressive deck. And also against the more controlling decks, sneaking in that As Foretold can be really relevant as well. There's not a lot most decks can do if you're on the play and you turn to an As Foretold, right? Most games where we resolve As Foretold, we win. For the, you know, if you're talking really broadly, obviously not every time, right? Sometimes you're just going to be As Foretold flooded or have nothing to do with them or whatever. But bottom line, most games we resolve As Foretold as currently constructed, we win. So if adding Simian Spirit Guide could potentially help us resolve these more often, maybe that's something we're interested in doing. So those are sort of the 3 big ways I think you could continue to approach this deck. The one that interests me the least is going deeper into black. And like I said, I think what I would do if I continue to test this deck would be to take a bunch of steps back, kind of undo a bunch of my changes, even though I think a lot of them have been good. Go back to the creators list and then start building out from there again to see where it takes me. And then I think if I wanted to try something particularly exciting again, I think the red list with Chalice and Blood Moon, all that, I think that could be really interesting. So, yeah, I think that's worth exploring if you're interested in testing this deck. I think it is a lot of fun, but we're just not there yet. Like, there's a lot, I think, that needs to be done to this list and this deck in general, but it does kind of feel like there's something here which has surprised me when I first saw the list. Definitely thought it was quite a pile, but the results it's put up have been better than I expected. The results I've had with it have been better than I expected, but very variant. Some days have been very poor. Some days have been awesome. I mean, we did get the 5-0. We've had a few 4-1s, but we've also had a few 2-3s. So, you know, it's maybe got some consistency issues overall. It's not something I'd be willing to take to a large tournament anytime soon, or anything like that. So anyway, that's where I think you can move forward with this deck. So certainly something worth considering. Thanks everybody again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.